Hello everyone and welcome to an extra episode of Made of Things. I am your host, Antonio Maria Correia. My dad is doing better and is now home resting. This is for everyone who listened to the last episode this week. And so I'd like to thank everyone who sent their support and kind words. Usually we post an episode every week, but we have been sort of missing the mark in recent months, so we're having a double episode week this week. The guest on this show is David Gordon Green. But before we get to him, I'll tell you another interaction I had during my vacation in the UK. Speaking of the UK, do you know something people don't get over there? Trucker Stan. I mean, I don't mean trucker Stan, like Stan the trucker. I have no idea or no clue who Stan the trucker is. If you do, however, please tweet your answers, in case you have more than one, at Made of Things Pod. But in the UK, I highly doubt that they get that sort of tan that truck drivers get, even when they're called Stan. Because apparently you can't really get tanned in the UK, I guess. I mean, can you? I don't know. Again, please tweet at Made of Things Pod. But even if you did try to get a trucker Stan in the UK, it would have to be called a lawyer Stan. Is that a thing? And it doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it? In Australia, though, you can get a trucker Stan, or a lawyer Stan, even if you're not called Stan. But it will end up on your right arm, not your left arm. Now, if you're an upper hemisphere person, let that sink in for a minute. Maybe all the truckers in the world, or even lawyers, should unite their hands, tanned hands, and tanned arms across the globe. And that's a choice we're making. We are saving our own lives. It's true. We will make a better day. Just you and me and truck drivers. Well, on the last episode, I told you my Stuart Lee story, and today I will tell you my James Murphy story. This is the James Murphy from LCD Sound System and the FA Records James Murphy. So while I was in London, I was having some lovely beers with my friends down at Broadway Market. I remember some great Icelandic beer called Einstök, I think. So we were just hanging out, and suddenly this fellow in a suit passes by, pushing a baby carriage. So I recognized that it was James Murphy, and I've been a long-time fan of his work, and LCD Sound System as well. But at the time I was thinking, well, I already had my share of amazing encounters during this trip, as often happens whenever I go to London. This considering that, in past trips I met and talked at length with Paul F. Tompkins and Peter Serafinowicz, and at this time, I met Pat Mastelotto and the whole Stuart Lee thing I talked about on the last episode. But I figured that I'd had my luck already during this time. So, James was just strolling by and wanted to relax, so I was just going to let this one fly. But my friend was coincidentally going to DJ later that night in the Broadway Market, and said, I have one of his vinyls with me, so I really want to get him to sign it. And it made sense to me, so I just let him off. So he went off to fetch the record, and I stayed behind with my Einstök. The Einstök beer. This is a plug, by the way. Please, guys at Einstök, mail me all the beer in the world that you guys do. Not all the beer in the world. There's no room for that. Okay, but I can try. But I like wine as well. Okay, so back to the James Murphy thing. I have this principle in my life, which is that if I have the chance to do something, and that chance may never happen again, I am going to go for it. There is nothing to be gained from not doing something, and you can toy with the possibility of not having to deal with failure. But to tell you the truth, so many great things have come from me acting like this, and nothing that I really regret has ever happened, that there is basically no grounds for me to just, I could have done that, but I didn't. Now I have to live with myself. And now I have not done that. And it was really basically harmless. There's also a big fear of humiliation, but I'll tell you that most people who are even of curmudgeon-y fame or have a fame of being difficult aren't really if you're not an asshole. So you can approach people. There's just a way of doing that. Anyway, this all means that I couldn't resist going up to James Murphy, and I was just going to join my friend once he had approached James. So I went off to find them, and I did. And my friend put his record up front and asked if James would sign it. And James said yes, but then some sort of weird vibe started to happen. So then I stepped in and I just asked James how he was, and that it was funny to see him there and unexpected, and also that John McClane and Nancy Wong had just been on this podcast the week before, and also that the LCD Sound System show I saw in Lisbon back in 2007 was one of the best I've ever seen, which is not only not a huge lie, as it is not a lie at all, as it is true. So James was very nice, and we just let him go on his way after our brief interaction. So my point here is that you do not have to be that guy. If you don't know what that guy means, it means that guy who goes up to someone that's well known in the public eye and is used to having people come over and talk to them because they recognize them or something. So the description, that guy, applies to people who are uncomfortable and make people uncomfortable by not knowing how to handle certain situations. As simple as talking like a human, which is surprisingly difficult sometimes. So, as a person, you can really project things onto others a lot. And, of course, you don't want to be that guy, but then again, no one wants to be that guy. You just be confident in your approach because you do not have to be afraid. If you're nice and are basically a good human being and really just want to go talk to someone you look up to or whose work you appreciate, just go do it. There is really no shame in that. Plus, if you tell people that you like their art, they will appreciate it like 9 times out of 10. But there's a rule here, though, which is no lying. Because people might be really able to tell when people don't know what they're talking about. So, and sometimes the opposite happens. Like, I've been listening to Dan Deacon for a long time now, and I got the feeling that I didn't come across to Dan that this was true, at first, at least. But, that was on me because I was tired and just couldn't remember stuff. But the names of things, even with Pat Mastelotto, I just mixed some track names. And that's my favorite band, guys. So, and along with Pavement. So stuff can happen. But, so you really don't want to lie. If you don't really like what someone does, then there's no point in approaching them. Social cues are there to be read, so try also not to overstay your welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. So, enough preaching from me. I hope you found that useful in any way, because, you know. So, this week on the show, we have the director, David Gordon Green, who is a good example of what I was talking about. I was at this film festival over here in Lisbon in the past week, and David was promoting his new movie called Our Brand is Crisis, which is a political satire starring Sandra Bullock. This happened to me during the interview, actually. I still don't know her name. Sandra Bullock. So Sandra Bullock, Billy Bob Thornton, Anthony Mackie, and Joaquim de Almeida, who is Portuguese like myself, by the way, if you weren't aware. So David Gordon Green was over here at the festival, and I saw him talking to people, so I just wanted to go up to him and tell him how much I like the show Eastbound and Down, of which he directed like 24 episodes, and the movies Pineapple Express and Your Highness, and how his casting choices are usually awesome. You know, people like Paul Rudd and James Franco and Seth Rogen. and also how cool it is that he's a part of the whole North Carolina crew of people in comedy, headed some way, I guess, by Danny McBride, who is the star of Eastbound and Down. So David and I talked for a few minutes about those things, and suddenly we were talking about podcasts, and now he is here on my show. So please enjoy the brief conversation I had with David Gordon Green. Recording the show with Mac from Superchunk the other day.
Oh, nice.
The other night, actually 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
So it came up during the conversation because you said because you had told me that they were from Chapel Hill, and I don't know what that means. Oh. So what does that mean, coming from Chapel Hill? I'll get to the movie very shortly.
But did he confirm that?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I went to college in North Carolina, and so we'd always go to Chapel Hill to go check out all the rock shows. So I'd see them play there, and I remember them being. I thought I remembered them being from there. So we'd go to this place called Cat's Cradle.
Oh.
Which is a great venue for seeing bands, or at least was when I was in college there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And your gang is like Danny McBride and stuff like that. You guys went to college all? Is it? Or am I wrong?
No, you're right.
And Jody Hill and stuff like that.
Jody Hill and Richard Wright and Tim Orr and a lot of our crew. Even Anthony Mackie went to school with us
really?
there, and so it's been a fun group of people to work with. Chris Gebert, our sound mixer, and so many of the people that we work with there all the time. We were to school in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and there was limited music opportunities there. Although I remember great shows coming through town, like Will Oldham would come to town, or some.
I've actually interviewed him like a year ago.
Oh really?
Yeah. He's I think he's coming back actually later this week. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's awesome. He did a song for my second movie, All the Real Girls. He did the opening credit song for it.
And he stars in it as well. Or no,
just in it. But he stars in a movie that I love called The Guatemalan Handshake. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
Oh, you got to see that movie. He's amazing in it.
He's really, really, really hysterical. Like, it seems to be like naturally very prone to doing very silly things, I guess.
Yeah. He's got an eccentric career, but it's always funny, sad, and beautiful all at the same time, which is it's kind of nice.
I'm laughing because I just remember that you see this microphone. He pretty much stuck this into his mouth.
Oh, nice.
So there you go. This has some history.
That's cool. No, his voice has got. I feel like his voice has gotten a lot prettier too over the years. From when he was in Palace Brothers, or he was in that movie Matewan when he was little, and. It's been cool watching guys that I really admire, particularly the formative years of being in college in the early mid-'90s. And music was a big thing for me and a lot of people, and that was those bands, those groups we're talking about were all a big part of it. My favorite band was this band called Bedhead. You got to check out Bedhead. They were amazing, and La Bradford. That's a great band. So there's a number of pretty melancholy, dark stuff for the most part.
I'm actually a music journalist, and most of the people I interview are musicians. So this is pretty funny that I don't know any of those.
Oh really?
So,
man, those are some good ones. I had a lot of.
I'm not going to compliment myself, but still, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think of other bands in that time period that I really love. Slow Dive and and Red House Painters.
Yeah, absolutely. Saw them live last year, actually. Slow Dive.
They're still playing together. That's cool.
They just reunited. They got back together, and those bands of the shoegazy things.
Yeah, I love it. Low,
exactly.
They were good.
Do you know Ride from the UK?
No.
You should check them out as well. Okay. Slow Dive and Ride and stuff like that are pretty much My Love Valentine and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
actually,
absolutely.
I have the guy from Ride actually on this series of shows, but that's
cool.
But still, do you think I was talking about that because you think those for instance, you've done a lot of excellent comedy such as Eastbound and Down and Pineapple Express and Your Highness and stuff like that. Do you think that has informed this movie at all? Do you feel that this carries over?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a little bit more of an overt and aggressive sense of humor in that stuff, but I wanted this movie to move and be entertaining and have a lot of laughs and sense of humor injected into it. So I would like to think that, as diverse and varied as my approach is to various content, that there's some bleed over, and I have some absurdity in my dramas, no doubt, and some drama in my comedies, no doubt.
And I was going to ask if there was anyone from those things involved in this movie, but apparently, of course.
Well, yeah, a lot of my crew that works on almost, and I just finished this new series with Richard, and so many of the guys that I went to college with were still making stuff with them. David Wingo, who was the composer that did the score for this movie, I've known since we were in the 3rd grade together.
Oh, wow.
We met in elementary school, and he's done a lot of my scores for my movies. And sometimes we'll do things where we bring in, like, I've done a few where we bring in Explosions in the Sky as a band we collaborate with quite a bit. Or Jeff McElwain is an electronic musician known as Lucene that we use on some of our stuff. And actually, Jeff helped us out a little bit on this movie. And actually, on this movie too, my assistant Aman Abbasi is a great musician, so he would do some of the tracks and help Wayne go out and do some original stuff for us. Like when there's an advertisement, a commercial for the campaign, Aman's back there making the music for it, just using some heavy synthesizers, and it's just cool. Music's a big part of movies for me, and here trying to make a score that feels big and vibrant, but also has some ethnicity to it, and then we use songs from, there's an Aymara rap group that did a song for us in the club, and a lot of Bolivian tunes, and a couple Peruvian and Colombian songs on the soundtrack.
That rap one that you hear in the club, right?
Yeah, that's an incredible Wayna rap. It's an amazing track that actually I was just Googling around and I was on YouTube looking for Bolivian rap groups, and then found this, and it's all in Aymara, which I think is just such a beautiful language.
And it's it's a party song, isn't it? Kind of, but it's pretty aggressive, or is it the other way around?
Well, it's just a little dark, but it's the kind of party I like to go to.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We're in the same gang, man.
Yeah.
But do you think, like, we were speaking of music, like this movie also has, because it seems to be something recurrent in your work, that it has, you sometimes have, or many times, if not all, I don't know, but have this moment in your movie or episode that you directed or something that it's very emotionally connected or emotionally invested, you would say. Do you think this happens in this movie as well?
Yeah, I feel like we take a lot of time to find the emotion in this film, and sometimes it's just a quick glance from a character. Other times it's like seeping into a situation, letting the music take over. Particularly the last 10 minutes of the movie, I think it has some nice emotional momentum. But it's also a study of cynicism and kind of American indulgence in politics, and the audacity of a cultural group walking into a culture that's foreign to them and thinking they know best. So that's its own emotion. It's not necessarily always tugging at your heartstrings, but it's pissing you off or making you think about things, how they are, how they should be, how they shouldn't be.
So it's more like frustration instead of like inner. What do you call it? Spirituality, more or less.
Yeah, well, sometimes you want to appeal to the intellect, and sometimes you want to appeal to the raw emotion of it.
And I would like to ask as well, because there's something funny about the genre of this movie. Because I tried to inform myself the least amount possible.
I don't even know what genre it is. What is this movie?
It isn't any, I guess.
Political satire. It is.
I guess.
I think it is. It certainly is. It's inspired by a true story, but we took a lot of creative liberties with it, and injected a lot of humor, and kind of don't really point fingers, but we kind of scratch at the surface of issues, and and hopefully that makes it relatable to people of any culture. It takes place in Bolivia, but these situations that we're talking about, IMF and economic intervention of other countries, and ideology, I think that could just as easily apply to Portugal or Turkey or Iceland or Greece, any number of countries that are dealing with this, or from an American perspective, the involvement of Russia, China, some of the influence that we're getting from, it's a delicate balance, when you step into another country, when you're there for presenting your own philosophies. Sometimes it can be very frustrating to the indigenous community, and other time it can be very inspiring. So it's just obviously trying to do something for the good. Is you hope everybody's heart's in the right place. It's not always the case.
This is just funny to me because, for instance, I did not know that I expected any sort of comedy in this movie, and I saw the artwork and it seems very serious, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, Sandra Bullock is clumsy in the movie, and so all of a sudden it's very startling, I guess. The effect is very, of someone who knows nothing, is very, convoluted, I guess. But is that what you're going for?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to throw people off and defy their expectations a little bit, and I think this movie is engineered for that.
Excellent. Thanks for your time, man.
Good talking to you.
Good talking to you. I hope to see you again in the future.
Yeah, check out Bedhead. You'll like it.
I will. That was my time with David. I hope we are able to chat some more in the future. Thank you guys for listening, and keep watching for new shows coming up. I'll be announcing them on all the social media, such as Tinder. You can hit me up on Tinder. That's not even technically possible, I think. But it is technically possible for you to like the page on Facebook at Made of Things. Also Instagram at Made of Things. Twitter at Made of Things Pod. Subscribe on iTunes. Leave comments. Rate something, whatever it is. Rate a pineapple. Rate a bag of bolts. And rate some percentages as well. And also it would be very, very cool for you guys to leave something on Twitter, like a twig on Twitter. A Twitter. Made of Things Pod. That's all for this episode. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you all next week on Made of Things Pod. And I do mean all of you. Bring your friends and things that you like. So, see you guys. Bye.